Hey guys, and welcome to the Entrepreneur podcast. My name is Mark Burik, and I've got my podcast producer and partner here, Jake Markin. And today we're going to run this podcast a little bit differently, and we're going to try to generate some of our own content without a guest. Essentially, what we're going to talk about is everything that you should start asking yourself as you're starting your company, as you're starting your entrepreneur journey, and some of the difficult questions that you actually have to go through and answer. Now, my answers might not be yours, but I'll give you the things that I considered in growing Better at Beach and when we started Entrepreneur Athlete. And, Better at Beach is now $1 million company, and we're very excited about that. We're proud of it. We're happy. We're one of the largest beach volleyball companies in the space, if not the best or most known beach volleyball education company. So I hope I've got some advice for you and that you can take it to the bank, as they say. So we're going to start the show, and Jake's going to run me through a couple questions, and this is going to be a little bit of a conversational podcast, so I hope you enjoy it. Guys, if you are listening, if you've enjoyed any of the other episodes, and if this provides you any value, before you start, maybe just go back and give us one of those little 5-star reviews on the podcast. And if you love the episode and you want to share it with an entrepreneur or fitness friend or somebody who you know is a great coach and should start their own business, go ahead and share it. Jake, let's rock, man.
Let's rock and roll. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Always cool to be in front of the camera. But yeah, we've been kind of at this now for, I guess it's been a couple months in progress, and maybe more for you in the back of your mind over the past year or more. So I guess the first thing is putting it into motion. Like, what were the first steps that you kind of knew you needed to take to turn Entrepreneur Athlete into an actual business that was tangible and not just an idea that you were kicking around?
Starting your second business. So a lot of entrepreneurs, they say that making your first million is super hard. Every million after that becomes easier and easier and easier, right? Because you know all of the hiccups, you know all of the directions not to turn, and you know all of the softwares not to wear, and you know where you lost the most time from those sometimes painful experiences, but really valuable experiences. So when we're talking about Entrepreneur Athlete, and at the time of this recording, technically we're not a business yet. It's right now, this is just my personal school, right? This is something that I want to do. And I talked to a friend of mine, Nick Fusilli, who is a serial entrepreneur, just starts businesses. Sometimes it seems like every month, but he owns a beach volleyball facility as well. And he said, I'm spending most of my time doing this for the companies that I have. So I'm going to start a company where I'm doing where I'm already spending most of my time. And for him, that's he calls it a fractional CFO. Essentially, he's the chief financial officer. He's in charge of making the financial decisions for all of his companies. That's where he loves spreadsheets. And I go, ugh, that sounds like nothing I would ever want to do. But for me, I enjoy the marketing, the conversations. When I see websites and I see podcasts or I get emails from people, I'm really interested and critical of those things. So for my friends and for my family members, if they're open to it, I offer a ton of advice. And I like that CMO, the chief of marketing. So when I'm starting Entrepreneur Athlete, I say, okay, what do I enjoy most and what do I actually want out of it? How do I want to spend my time? For me, I want to learn from other entrepreneurs and I want to learn from their journey. And if they're not ahead of me or if I don't have a ton to learn from them, I'd like to be able to teach and coach because that's another absolute passion of mine. So the conversation is what I'm interested in. Eventually, this is going to turn into a small coaching business, a business coaching business, and hopefully a TV show, but we'll get there later. I just know that it takes a lot of effort to hit the ground running and to build that swell. So right now, all we're doing with Entrepreneur Athlete is doing what I enjoy most and trying to take off of my plate what I absolutely hate, but currently know is necessary. So what do I know is necessary to build a podcast? You have to give a ton of value. Our conversations are already doing that. You have to get the word out. And that's where, Jake, you're coming in, where you are in charge of going through the podcast, listening, sitting there, going through the podcast, and then tagging all of the nuggets. We call them nuggets. So anytime me or one of our guests says something that is smart or might go in our quote book, Jake tags that timeline and he writes what we said. And then in the future, he's going to edit that into a video, lay some things over that, transcribe it, and get it posted. I personally hate posting on social media. I personally hate going and doing what they tell you you should do, which is responding to each individual comment. I like talking to people. I don't feel like the 100 or so comments that we might get under a video is actually having a discussion with people. You're typing. When it's me and my friends, I call them because I want to hear their voice. I don't text. So these are the things. Video editing. I hate it. I suck at it. I need somebody to do it. Social media posting. Hate it. I can do it, but it's not where I want to spend most of my time. So for me, building my second business, I know what's necessary currently, and I know where we're going. So I'm choosing a person, Jake, who has the skill set, the desire, the passion to do the things that he enjoys doing that I don't. And this is how we're starting to build Entrepreneur Athlete. So everybody needs this. And have you ever, Jake, did you ever see Silicon Valley, the show?
I know about it. I haven't watched it, but
Some hyper genius nerd who's got great software, and I don't know, I guess he's kind of like the antithesis of Google, or the, what do you call it? Oh, shoot, the enemy of Google. He's got some great software and Google's trying to take over him, but he's got all of the ideas. He loves coding. He loves the computer work. Eventually he finds his right-hand man who knows everything about business operations. And so those two made an incredible team, because you've got your genius, your mad genius, and then you've got the person that corrals all of that into a linear path.
Right.
Now, you and me, right now, we don't have the business linear path genius. We have, I guess, what if you were to consider you and me, like, I'm the artist, you're the producer, editor, inviter. You've got a lot of roles. And we do have a direction. Currently, we're not selling anything, but we're not trying to sell anything right now. We're just having great conversations, and we'll figure out from our audience what we want to offer throughout these conversations.
Right. Well,
So
go
ahead.
Kind of going away from Entrepreneur Athlete, but like, I think a lot of people listening to this, like, there's definitely a lot of athletes who just never, maybe thought that they had it in them to start their own business or to go there. And so, like, what was going through your head, being younger and being a pro player, and then trying to do all those things and trying to find those people? Or did you even know you had to find somebody to do all the back end work? And like, so what's like a step somebody can take in that first kind of place instead of trying to take everything on? Is it getting another person, or is it just kind of trying to do some YouTube learning or take some courses, or like, what do you think there?
All right. My number one tip would be start, don't plan. I know that sounds wacky or weird for a lot of people, but that's for me, that's my personality. I want to go forward. I want to move. I know that if I've got an idea and I've got a fire under my butt, like, it's time to move forward and take those steps, because nobody follows if you're not walking.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to show that you're actually making those moves while I'm doing that. I'm going to, if I were to start again, I would talk to everybody who's done it and say, what do you think I need? What do you think I need? What do you think I need? Everybody who's got a business, who's got a coaching business, who owns a gym, owns a fitness studio, I would have tried to hunt them down, take them out for cups of coffee, bring a bottle of their favorite wine or whiskey, and just be like, thank you for meeting me. I just want to know what your big mistakes were. I want to know what your biggest time sucks were. And I would honestly listen to, this is how I got into real estate. I would listen to podcasts like this. The people who are doing it have done it and are having those conversations. The only problem with listening to a podcast is it might not answer exactly your question.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, just like when you're searching in Google and you click on all those links, it kind of dances around your question. So it sort of nearly hits what you asked, but it doesn't directly respond to you. It responds to a version of your question. And that's where a conversation with those people is what's important. And I had the fortunate experience of being around and really hanging out with a bunch of people who had run volleyball vacations, who had run volleyball classes and private lessons. So I knew some of what went into it, but I didn't know how much of the back end softwares, all the computer work and emails that they were going through. I just saw them managing the events while they were happening in person.
Right.
I didn't see the months and hours that went into it beforehand.
Yeah. I think that's a big one too, that talking about finding mentors and people who have done it and are currently doing it, because as somebody myself who feels like I'm like an octopus trying to do 75 different things and pursue different passions. And then if you try to get if I write a song and I ask my mom and I ask Joe down the street, they're going to tell you they like this part and to change that part. But so I've been very selective recently about if it's anything, professionally, that I only ask people that I really think know that realm. Because, for example, like my dad tells the story of his friend who wrote a book, and he wrote that book over the course of like 15 years because he'd constantly send out a draft to everybody. And they'd say, I don't like that person. I don't like the ending. And he'd change it and he'd change it and he'd change it till finally he just did it. He went door to door and he sold, like 100,000 copies or something, maybe not 100,000, but he, was like a bestseller around here. And just by doing it instead of like constantly asking people. But yeah, I think that's a huge one, is find somebody who's doing what you want to do. Or if you can't find that person, there's resources out there like podcasts and like this, right? That you can get more information. Yeah. That's not just from somebody who's like, nah, I don't think you should start a business, but they're just your friend who hasn't done anything. So,
or they give you that idea, they hear your idea and immediately they interject something that they want.
Right.
Hear that, but then quickly steer the conversation back to not your buddies, not your family members who have never started a business, right? Talk to the people who have done as close to your business as possible, aren't competitors. That's one of the tough part, is maybe find somebody out of state if you can, or one of those older, established, generous people, and go that route. But the more you tell people, the more they will try to alter everything that you're doing, and then that does make you question yourself, and then you realize, wait a second, they're not in the trenches with me. I told my mom at one point, I made my mom cry. I told her, because everything in our life, she was always like, Mark, follow your heart, follow your heart, follow your heart. I believe in you. You've got this. And so they gave me a ton of confidence throughout my life. Anytime I mentioned business or investment, the first reaction from her was some type of warning or worry. No other topics, areas, categories that we discuss was she worried, concerned, take heed, So at some point I recognized this was happening a few times, and I go, Ma, it's like I'm trying to learn how to kick a soccer ball, and I'm asking somebody who has never even seen a soccer game. Mm-hmm. That would be tough to really trust that advice. And I go, I'm sorry, but this is one field where I'm going to take your love, but I can't take any advice from you. So we're not going to have these conversations about this anymore. I'll update you, but it's not with the advice. So you have to be careful about the people you seek advice from or who are giving it to you, mm-hmm. because they can really insert some negative seeds, and if it's from my mom, if it was so rare that she was giving me a negative, I treated it so serious because it was so unique that she was giving me a warning instead of, yeah, go for it, you got this, Right. So it stood out, and it was almost more powerful, which was detrimental to any progress that I would make.
Exactly. Yeah. And you just have to be careful, not to get caught up in the emotions, and just knowing that it's like, even if it's something small, asking a mentor to get a cup of coffee, or responding to, it's like you say it in a lot of podcasts, you send out a message just saying like, hey, does anybody want to do this kind of job? We're doing this. And I remember when I sent you mine, I closed it first. I was like, nah, that's
really?
Yeah. I was like, that's probably not me. Like, somebody could maybe do it better. But then I like sat there for a second. I was like, okay, I had a good chat with this guy. I'm way cooler than him, but I think we
destroying him in the cool department. So
no, we like match up on a lot of stuff, and just like I was like, I do all this stuff in my free time, and I do it professionally already. So why wouldn't I be a candidate for that? So, and then we went through a little trial, and we got here. But I mean, all it took was, and it's sometimes even fighting that mental battle in your head, right? And I think that's why you say, just do it. Even if you're only 75, 80% of the way there, you don't have everything. It's like, you're never going to be 100% ready. Like, there's no such thing as like anything being 100% perfect ever. There's always something that's going wrong. And but you'll never know unless you take a shot, right?
You could tell somebody how to play volleyball for 20 years. Until they attempt to do it, they won't progress in any way. So for all of the advice that you're going to get, the only way that you're going to start progression is by starting. Now, I'm not going to say drop a ton of coin, like boom, go full blast into it. I can't recommend that you dive in with your life investment, but start taking meaningful steps. Start posting that, hey, I'm starting a new podcast and a project. I'm starting some business coaching. Do this, make the announcements, and show somebody that you've actually taken steps. Within the first couple of weeks, I showed you, I was like, hey, got the website up, and you're like, oh, so we're moving, we're going. I was like, yeah, got that. And I built you the email, the Entrepreneur Athlete Gmail, the Instagram. So there are meaningful moves that I said, it's happening. And you heard me announcing it as well. Mm-hmm.
I think that's another cool one, like working with you, is that, I know that long term you want to, have your own stuff going on, and maybe not as much be, you're coaching for 8 hours a day, or you're doing podcasts for 8 hours a day, but you still want to be involved with everything. And I know that you want to kind of like have stuff run in the background. But the cool thing about working with you is that you lead by example, and you're good at kind of like, you're doing the work in the background, and you're checking in, and you're doing your own stuff, right? Where there's the bosses and the people who are like, hey, do this, and then they never check in with you again. Or you're like, okay, but like, I need all this stuff from you. Like, what are you doing from that end, right? So I think that the person in charge really has to be that passionate about it. And then it's your job then to find people who are in the same mindset as you, who are also want to be passionate about it. And, but yeah, it's tough when you have somebody who's telling you to do stuff, and then they're like, I'm not going to show you anything, but I want you to run this. And it's like, that's why it's so cool working with you, because it's like you're doing so much, and you're doing all the conversations, and I'm, just helping facilitate to make it more widely known, right? So
yeah, well, that of course is easy at the beginning. It's definitely harder for people. So I will say that Brandon suffered the worst of this. My partner in Bitter Beach, he suffered the worst in this because I would have ideas, nonstop ideas. And because I finally had somebody that I could share them with and could help with the implementation, it would be 2 a.m. and he would get a text about us completely tearing down and redesigning our email system. And then the next day at 9 p.m., he would get something about like, we got to change up our social media strategy and do this. And he goes, these are big sweeping changes that we're asking for. And you just texted me 2 massive projects in one day. For me, I knew it had to be done. I wanted it to be done, but I also just needed to put it into the universe and feel like somebody else was a part of this great idea, that they would remember it as much as I would remember it. He took it as all this stuff's got to be done, and I'm just throwing tons of things at him. And we had to have a few talks and figure that out, what we actually had to do, and say, how much time does each thing take? And the one thing that I learned from Jocko Willett from Extreme Ownership, where is he a SEAL? Yeah, so. Navy SEAL. And he says, stop or take a breath, look around, make a call. And he goes, what is your highest priority right now? And I even had this discussion yesterday with Chad, who runs our social media, also does a lot of our email marketing. But while he was at camp, I went into the email marketing, into our website, and he was very concerned because our Instagram got hacked, got taken over. We don't have our 93,000 followers anymore. Mm-hmm. And we have a backup account that we started building for exactly this reason. I said, what if we put all of our effort into one platform and it gets taken, or it gets hacked and it's destroyed? We have to have some sort of backup. So we have 4,000 followers on our backup account, and he's very concerned with getting it up and running. And I said, Chad, if our back were against a wall right now, like we had zero money in the account, what would our number one priority be? It would be to get money in the account. So I go, our marketing, our fun videos that we're talking about, that is not the priority right now. Your priority as chief of sales is you got to figure out how to sell, get into those emails, and let's see who needs our workout program, who needs our arm swing program, and start delivering those and getting money in the account. That is the stop, look around, let's make a priority call, because everybody's got a limited number of hours in the day.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important. You did this at your camp where you went through a whole talk about reaching out to people close to you and having them identify places you could work on. And, you talked about yourself doing that with, past partners on the volleyball court. And I think with your team members, especially if you're going to be going into business with your friends, which is kind of like a debatable topic. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and he's like, one of the biggest things that's, is the toughest thing is to bring people in your business that are your friends. And I think that that's debatable, and also kind of do they have the skill set? Because I think people bring in their friends and their family because they're trustworthy, but then you have to be honest with yourself of, are they the person for the job? And
I don't think they bring them in because they're trustworthy. I think they bring them in because they're accessible.
Mm-hmm, that's true.
And they want to give money to the people who are close to them. So if I have to pay somebody, why wouldn't I pay my sister-in-law? Why wouldn't I pay my best friend?
Right.
But it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's a unique situation that makes it work. For me and Brandon, we are far from the perfect partnership because we are very similar to each other in our skill set, in our education. And I really needed somebody who can make all of the software and editing and everything worked. And we thought we had that, but our editor didn't really believe that she could make enough money early enough to come on full time. And we gave her a big offer in the beginning to be a part owner of the company. And she's like, so I'm going to be working for free for a while till we build it. And she didn't go. And now, she's still a part of us. She's still doing what she wants to do, but I still think she missed out a little bit on that early conversation where, yeah, but I can't pay you full time right now. I don't have that money, even though I know we need marketing. Still, she has crushed it for us because she put us completely on the map for YouTube. And that's where who knows, 90% of our customers and players come from.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one, especially in the beginning, right? Because, that's where it kind of goes back to how passionate you are and how much you're working, that it's the only people who are going to say yes to stuff like that is the people who can be like, okay, I can see these guys being at this place in a year, 5 years.
And who don't need that money right then.
Right. That's
have some time. There's that window, right, for them, for a person who's like, yes, I would enjoy doing that. I think it's fun. And I have a couple extra hours here and there to actually work on it.
Mm-hmm. So maybe
or
as a last,
you get a money partner too.
Right, exactly. So we're just trying out these short little half-hour podcasts, but maybe as a last quick topic, how does somebody, because I've heard about people who want to start these businesses, but they have a family, they have their 9 to 5, it's like, when do you have time? And I've, heard, little quotes about, you just need to, any waking moment that you have needs to go towards that business, to escape that kind of, not escape the 9 to 5, because I don't think everybody's trying to do that. But if you want to start a business and it be your full-time thing, what would you tell people who are doing that, who are working a 9 to 5 job and they have a family and they want to open their own gym, or they want to open volleyball courts, or they want to be a trainer? Like, what would you tell that person?
I would say that it's possible. I'd say that for the people who are around you, you need to be aware of how much time and what time and when you're going to be putting in there. For me and Janelle, we live together. She's a stunt woman, so she could be home for 2 months and gone for 2 months. While I'm in here working, even though we're in the same house, because I don't want to pay an extra $3,000 or $2,000 for an office, every month. I don't think that's worth it. I'd rather stay at home and be right next to my at-home gym. But I'm also not and shouldn't be accessible while I'm here, because I need zoned, focused work. So she knows that, like, this office now, and it wasn't right away, but she knows that while I'm working in this office, this is a sensitive area for me, and I need to focus and I need to stay on the same track. I can't start thinking about Amazon deliveries or shopping or even what we're having for dinner, because I'm in a zone and I need to keep flowing. Right. The same way that I would be when I was practicing volleyball. If I'm in a 2-hour practice, now it's not the time to come and have a discussion of what a chair are we going to buy, for our baby's room. That has to be there. So you have to have the conversation with the people around you and think if it's okay. And in your life, it's that same thing. Stop, look around, take a breath. Is this your priority? Is making that extra money or your passion project, is that going to be more meaningful to you than spending the time with your son or daughter?
Right.
Or can you do it when they're not around? Or are you sleeping too much? Or are you Netflixing?
Right.
Are you scrolling? If those timers, if you take a look at those, that's your time. Stop scrolling, start listening to a podcast. Then, as soon as you listen to a podcast on Tuesday, implement whatever you learned the next day instead of the scroll time. But people get too addicted to their phone and to screens to put in work.
Well, I know, like, you and I both have a training background, and so many times you come across people who are like, I don't have time to have a trainer. I don't have time to come to the gym. And it's like, well, first of all, you're here. Second of all, there's time for everything. And it's just stuff that you don't think, like, yeah, there's the time you got to work, and there's the time you're with your kids, and there's the time you're eating. But, like, if you have that mentality, you're never going to eat a healthy meal. You're never going to have a quality date with your husband or wife or partner, and you're never going to make it to the gym, let alone spend an hour working on your hobby, passion project, or your future business. So I think that's kind of like you said, it's about letting the people know in your life that this is my time, and then also scheduling that time, and also not being afraid to start small. Like I just listened to Atomic Habits, and one of the things he says is, put your shoes at the front door, go to the gym, but don't even have an intention to work out. If you go home, fine, or do the 2-minute rule, or, go wash a dish. And if you only wash one dish, you washed one dish. But if you wash them all, great. And I think people should take that intention more, because people get bogged down, right? It's the same thing. Like I said, I want to do this, and I got this, and I got this, and I got this. So I'm going to do none of it and watch Netflix. Where it's like, maybe you should just put down a journal, and I'm going to write down one sentence about what I want to do for my business. And then if you just didn't even put anything down, at least you sat there and had the journal in front of you, right?
Yep. I would say that for entrepreneurs and people that are starting, when you have your own business, it's the hardest part. Hardest part of being an entrepreneur and having your own thing is knowing what you shouldn't do, because you feel like you own your company, so it can go in a million directions, and you have to eliminate it into one direction for that day. Yesterday, same thing with Chad. I told him about the new direction for the email marketing, right? Hey, this is everything that we're doing. This is where it's going to go. So we're going to have a series of emails for each course in the Better at Beach program. And then we need different emails talking to coaches because they care about different things than players do. So we need separate for those, which means that we now need 14 emails, but they have to come after the opt-in. And we have to make sure that we're not sending emails to people who had just bought camps. And we're definitely not sending emails to anyone who just joined because they're in the middle of the first funnel. And we can't send to anybody who has not opened anything in 60 days because it's crushing our open rates. If I lost you there, we'll cover it in other topics. But we just said, okay, all of these rules plus 14 email sequences, which each one should be about 5. So 14 times 5, whatever, 50, 90, 100. Do the math. I said, end of the meeting. Now that we've said all that, priority. What do you have to do? I need you to write 5 emails that help sell and promote our workout program to beach volleyball players. Prioritize one thing, simplify, lock it into a single step. And I've been writing these emails to coaches as well. I said, let's just take one small section of my coaching manual and put it into an email and explain why it's in that manual.
Right.
That's all. I know that I need an entire marketing system. I know that my YouTube needs to get fixed. I know we need our Instagram account back. But what can I do today? I can write an email.
Right. Better
Great.
to work on one thing at 80 to 100% than do 6 things at 15%, right? And just have everybody get stressed out in the long term. So
we tell people with working out the same way you said, just, hey, you don't have to go for a full workout. Just get me 10 push-ups and 10 squats.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you do that, the laws of momentum are there. Like an object in motion will stay in motion unless a force is acted upon it. So once you actually start 3, 4, 5 push-ups, you're going to say, I could do 10. I could do 15. All right, you know what? Let me get 3 pull-ups while I'm here. And all of a sudden, you're 4 minutes away from a full 25-minute workout, which is all you need.
Right. And things get easier.
Just take single steps.
Right. And how long does it take to build a habit? Do you know the stats on that? Is it like a month or is it like 90 days or something?
21 days? I thought it was 21.
Yeah, I think it's only close to a month, but yeah, I mean, and we've all been there. We've all had habits and fallen out of habits where, you're working out every day and you're like, this is just what I do now. And then you fall out of it and it feels like insurmountable to get back. But then you do it a couple times and you're right back there. So yeah, this was cool. Cool little like half an hour, little, maybe more directed. We can have people, if you guys like this kind of thing or have specific topics you want Mark to dig into more, we can do it. And but yeah, Mark, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, guys, let us know on Instagram. We have a message we have an Instagram on Entreprenathlete, ENTRPRENATHLETE. Or just go to Mark Burik and let us know if you like these little 30-second snippets of coaching. I think it's easy. For me and Jake, if we're thinking about scheduling a guest and doing everything, just like we just said, what's easiest? What can we do right now? Well, Jake can ask me 3 questions on camera. We can have a conversation about it. And just these conversations are going to give somebody a bunch of value. And this is probably the highest efficiency that you and me can muster, I think, Jake. So I definitely want to do it again, but tell us on the Instagram after you give us a 5-star review on this podcast. Tell us if you really like the 30-minute snippets, and then ask us in the DMs your business questions. Jake will ask me. We'll chuck it into another 30-minute episode. That will be the absolute most helpful, and we can keep bringing these to you.